Hey, my name is Jared. Welcome to my BookTube channel, Keen Reads. I've wanted to make a BookTube channel for a while now, but I've let several things stop me, such as not having a good camera, things along those lines, and over time now, all those excuses have run out. So here I am making a BookTube channel. Welcome to Keen Reads. My name is not Keen, like I said. My name is Jared. Keen is my dog, who I'm sure will make some appearances on this channel depending on how things go. If I keep going with it, we'll just kind of see how things go. As far as reading goes, I typically read mostly classics or literary fiction, which I think you'll see from some of my selection today. Behind me are my bookshelves. I don't know if this is where I will be filming all my videos from or how things will go. If the lighting's off, I apologize. I live in a place where the sun kind of hates us, so it's hard to get good natural lighting. But today I'm going to talk about my 2025 book goal, or reading goal. I like to set a goal every year, not necessarily in how many books to read or how many pages to read or things like that, but something else. So for example, last year I set a goal of reading this whole bookshelf before I bought any new books. So that's what I kind of focused on the first half of the year, got about 6 months in and kind of got bored of it. But it was effective for getting me through a lot of my TBR, and I actually was able to read most of this shelf. Just an overview of how my shelves are organized. From this side over from left to right, we have all my books organized chronologically by date of birth of the author, and then we have some miscellaneous literary studies, criticism, poetry, things along those lines over here. So getting into what this video will be about, I'm talking about my 2025 reading goal, which is to read some big books. So I've had some large books on my shelves for several years, and they've kind of been sitting there waiting for the perfect time to be read. And I realize now that, hey, I'm thinking about what books I should read for this year. Maybe this is my sign that it's time to finally check off some of these books and read them. So I have 13, I think, big books that I'd like to read throughout the year. I'm currently almost done with 3 of them, so I'll go through those ones first, and then we'll talk about the other ones after that. The first book I read this year on my list was The Decameron by Boccaccio. I had waited so long to read this for, I'm not really sure why. I mean, it's long, but I didn't really expect it to be a difficult read just because of the fact that it was written in the vernacular. It was a pretty old book. And it really wasn't that difficult of a read, but I did enjoy it. For those that don't know, it's about some Italians that were hiding from the plague in the countryside, and they decided to tell each other stories. And there's 100 stories told over 10 days. Most of the stories had to do with lust, is what I kind of got from this. Lust, other carnal sins and things like that. Like I said, I enjoyed it. It's not one of my favorite books, but it was a pretty simple read, and I didn't find myself kind of wanting to read other books while I was reading it. The second book that I read this year was actually the 3rd volume of my complete or selected works of Samuel Beckett. I believe it's the selected works and not the collected works, just because it doesn't have any of his... It includes all of his works that he translated into English himself, so if he wrote it in French and did not translate it, it was not included in this volume. Specifically for this year, what I wanted to read was the 3rd volume, which is his complete dramatic works. I had already read the first 2 volumes, which are his major novels, and I really did enjoy his novels a lot. A couple of them were my favorites. As you can see, a couple of them were my favorites. I really enjoyed Murphy. Watt was okay. And then I really liked the first 2 volumes of the trilogy. The 3rd one got a little bit too out there for me, but I still enjoyed it. But I read the 3rd volume, which is his dramatic works. So the 2 kind of major works are Waiting for Godot and then Endgame, which I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. I think I liked Endgame a little bit more. I don't know why, it seemed a little bit more complete to me. Not that there was something lacking from Waiting for Godot, although I feel like it's supposed to feel that way. But I just enjoyed Endgame, I think, a little bit more. As far as the remainder of the dramatic works, they were a little abstract for me, especially in print. A lot of stage directions and things like that. And I found myself, as I was reading them, thinking I would much rather be seeing this on TV or watching this as a play rather than reading it. Yeah. One of my goals in making this BookTube channel is to be able to speak a little bit more intelligently about books. So if I come off as kind of rambling or saying things not of much substance, I apologize. And that's one of my purposes of this channel, is to be able to talk a little bit more critically and in depth about the things that I read, to hopefully take more away from them. The third book, which I am currently reading, is The Anatomy of Melancholy. So this is a work of the 1600s by Robert Burton, and it's almost a medical textbook about the various causes of depression or melancholy, which is basically clinical depression. And he speaks about it very scientifically, going through the various causes, cures, types of melancholy, things along those lines. It's a little hit or miss for me. There's parts that I'm just enthralled with and really, really enjoy. And there are other parts that I'm just like, wow, he's talking about senna leaves for like 4 pages. I think I find it a little bit more interesting just because I am a pharmacist by trade. So it's cool to see some of the things that we still use, like we still use senna for constipation, not for depression. But we still use that all the time in practice. So I think it was cool to see those things from the 1600s still relevant. I got about 200 pages left of this, so I'm almost done. But this is The Anatomy of Melancholy. Obviously, I waited so long to read this one just because of how daunting it is, and it's also been a pretty difficult read with it being 1600s English and almost a medical text. But, and I'll honestly say it's kind of felt that long. It has felt like a really long book, and it's taken me quite a bit to get through this. I think I've been reading it for over a month now. Now we're going to get into some of the other books that I want to read this year. So this will go a little bit quicker. I will talk about, I think, why I want to read them and why they've kind of been sitting around for so long. But the reasons they've been sitting around so long is mainly due to length or just intimidation, because a couple of them are ancient Greek histories or things like that, where I'm a little bit intimidated that I will read them and then get kind of stuck in the middle and lose interest. So let's get started. The first 3 that I'll talk about kind of go together. 2 of them are histories, and then one of them is an epic poem. So we have Histories by Herodotus, and then The History of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. I've heard a lot about these. Obviously, they're kind of canonical works. They are both written in the BC times. I should know a more specific date, but I'll just say the BC times, or BCE now. They are intimidating to me just because they're ancient Greek histories, and sometimes I can lose interest as I'm reading through a history and things like that. So I haven't read them in a while just because I've been looking for a time when I'm really interested in those things to hopefully be able to kind of power through in case I ever do lose interest in them. So hopefully when I go to read them this year, I will be able to power through. And then the third book is Metamorphoses by Ovid. This is not necessarily a book that I've been intimidated to read. I, for the most part, enjoy epic poetry. I've loved the Iliad. The Odyssey was okay, and then I really liked the Aeneid. So this is Metamorphoses by Ovid. I think the reason that it's on here is just because I've been looking for a time to read it, and I've never felt like that time was there. And I'm actually excited to read this one. Well, I'm excited to read all of these, but I would say more excited to read this than the histories, for the reasons that I already mentioned. Next up, we have The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser. This is a poem from 1400s, 1500s, around there. I think it's around Chaucer's time, maybe a little after Chaucer, but I'm a little bit hazy on my timeline, so again, fact check me in the comments, please. But This is, as you can see, a very long work, and I believe it's written in Middle English, if not Middle English a little bit later. But what that means is some of the letters are switched out from the ways that we use them today. I usually don't have issues reading older English, things like that, like Beowulf, but I believe the Beowulf translation I had was translated into modern English. So I think the reason that I have put this off so much is mainly because of its length, as well as just some of the differences in the language that might be a little intimidating, but hopefully we'll make it through it this year. Kind of continuing this line of ancient Greek works or poetry, things like that, we have Aristophanes, the complete plays. So I've read Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus. I would say those are the major ones I've read. But I have not read any Aristophanes, and I found this volume where it was the complete plays, so I was like, why not just get the complete plays? This is another one where it's a little bit lengthy, but I'm not really put off by the length. I think I've just been looking for a time to read it, and I told myself that the time is now. So as opposed to the three playwrights I just mentioned, I believe Aristophanes is more of writes comedies versus tragedies, but I could be wrong. So the complete plays by Aristophanes. The Divine Comedy. So I'm surprised myself when I was going through my shelves and realized that I had not read this yet. I have read the Inferno before, but it was a couple years ago, so I plan on rereading the Inferno when I go through this again. And this is one I'm really looking forward to. It's such a foundational work. When I was reading the Decameron, it referred to Dante. He's such a foundational author when it comes to the Western canon. He wrote it in the vernacular, which was kind of a new thing. I think he was one of the first Western poets or Western writers to write in the vernacular versus Latin. The next two are here purely because of length. So the first one is The Life of Boswell The Life of Johnson by Samuel Boswell. I think it's Samuel Boswell. How about we just say The Life of Johnson by Boswell? It might be James Boswell. I don't know. I feel like I should definitely know that since I'm talking about the book. But this is just have been on my list for a while now, and I want to just finally get through it. I've never read anything by Samuel Johnson, actually, so he's on my list of things to read. But I feel like anytime I read a major critic, or anything that's talking about literature, there's always a reference to Samuel Johnson as kind of the gold standard. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about his life. The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I've read a couple shorter works by Dostoevsky. I've read a collection of short novels like White Noise, things along those lines. And I've also read Crime and Punishment. I have not tackled any of his really larger novels in Crime and Punishment. I have Demons, and I believe I have The Idiot too, but from what I hear, this is the best. So that's what I was going to start with. And this is one that I'm excited to read. I think I'll probably try to read this soon, because obviously this is a lot of big books, and I could see myself kind of losing steam on this challenge throughout the year. But this is one that I definitely want to make sure that I get done. And then these last two are kind of special. So let's take a look. First thing I want to do is finish In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. So I have read the first 3 volumes of this. So Swan's Way, Within a Budding Grove, and The Guermantes Way. I only speak English, which I feel like a lot of the booktubers I follow speak French, speak German, speak other languages. If you heard that bark, that's Keen, the namesake of this channel. And I thoroughly enjoyed these books. I don't know why I stopped reading them. As you can see, I have a lot of notations on them. Just such beautiful prose and such beautiful thoughts. The idea of unconscious or involuntary memory is just so interesting, I think. So I recently looked up summaries online of the first 3 books to kind of refamiliarize myself with them. So hopefully as I jump into the final 3 volumes, or 4 I guess, because the 5 and 6 are combined into this volume, I won't be losing too much by kind of forgetting the first couple. So excited to read these. These are ones that I definitely want to read this year. And then a book that's been on my list to read ever since I started reading seriously is James Joyce's Ulysses. This is another one like Dante's Divine Comedy where I'm just shocked that I haven't read it yet, but also not too surprised because it's just been so intimidating to me. I've read Dubliners and The Portrait of an Artist of a Young Man. I like Dubliners more than The Portrait, but I enjoyed The Portrait. But I've just been so intimidated, not necessarily by the length, but the amount of allusions that are in this book. I have 2 companion works. So Allusions in Ulysses, as well as the new Bloomsday book. I don't foresee myself using this version or this book on my first read through because I think it might just be too much and it might break up some of my involvement in the book. This one I definitely plan to use. I've heard it's a really good resource, and it's not too big, so I don't think it'll really disrupt my reading flow. Flow is the word that I was looking for before. I don't think it'll disrupt my reading flow like such a large collection of allusions will do. But yeah, this has been on my list forever. My birthday is actually June 16th, which is Bloomsday, so I just really feel like it's meant to be. And I've been putting it off so long because I want to be well read before going into it, so that way I can pick up as much as I can, but I think it's about time to really just pull the trigger and get it over with. Not that I'm dreading it. That made it seem like I'm really just dragging my feet and gonna power through it. I really do think I'll enjoy it. And that's all I got. So we'll see how many of these I get through this year. We can kind of follow my progress as we go. I'm already almost through 3 of them, and it's the end of February now, so that's encouraging. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll see how things go, but I have a feeling I'll be making more. Thank you.